take or the picture you paint. It's the imagination of the consumer. They have no budget. They have no time limit. And if you can get into that space, your ad can run all day.
Our next guest says that while Mad Men once ruled advertising, they've now been eclipsed by Math Men. Best-selling author and longtime columnist for The New Yorker, Ken Auletta, joins us now. His new book, out today, is entitled Frenemies, the epic disruption of the ad business and everything else. We'll turn things around here. Nice to have you. Tell us about Frenemies. What's the biggest problem?
Well, the biggest problem is the biggest frenemy is the public, which basically hates those ads, hates being interrupted, particularly on cell phones.
Yes.
And has grown up accustomed to Netflix and YouTube and HBO, which don't have ads.
Or we can scroll through ads now.
Well,
you know?
According to Nielsen, 55% of the people who record a show on their PVR skip the ads.
Goodness gracious. Joe, jump in.
Yeah, and it's interesting that, Ken, even for an old guy like me who's 55, who grew up watching, Bonanza and Happy Days and these things where you would sit through 30-second ads for, a good 8-minute chunk of a 30-minute sitcom, even I become exasperated when any ads pop up online. I want to see the content, and I will skip a site rather than sort through a bunch of ads. We've all been retrained in a way that really guts the advertising industry.
And the consequences, my book is not just a story about advertising, it's a story about the people who are dependent on advertising, which is all the media. Mm-hmm. It's newspapers and magazines. And by the way, Facebook, 97% of their revenue comes from advertising. Google, almost 90% comes from advertising. So the apps, we're all dependent on advertising. If advertising dies, so do you have a lot of casualties.
Interesting.
So networks like this, Ken, now are competing with outlets like Netflix that you mentioned, or Amazon, which has a subscription model, doesn't have to produce ratings, doesn't have to prove anything to advertisers. So what happens with a company like NBC or ABC or CBS that has lived forever, for generations, on the ad-supported model?
What the networks have done, I wrote a book in 91 called Three Blind Mice, right. And they were totally dependent, the networks, on advertising. And I said, if that continued, if they didn't have multiple revenue streams the way cable did, they were doomed. What has happened since is government regulations. They gave retransmission consent from the cable companies, so the cable companies pay you for your programs. And they had FinCEN rules suspended, so they're allowed to own the programs. And now Netflix or NBC, CBS own most of the programs on their air. So they have alternate revenue sources. And by the way, they sell to Netflix. Right. Mm-hmm. So CBS, I know their numbers. I don't know NBC's numbers, but CBS today went from 100% reliance on advertising to 46%. They have these so they're in reasonable shape. But if that advertising goes from 46% to 25%, they got problems.
Nah.
We were talking this morning about Facebook and the advertising business. So they collect data on you and use it to make an incredibly targeted and precise targeting, right? Which is then squeezing these guys from the other side, right? So on the one hand, the users don't want to watch ads. On the other hand, Facebook has a better way to target them. And so what happens next for the industry if they're squeezed like that?
Well, the industry basically is saying, and it dovetails with the reporting you've been doing the last several days and beyond that, the industry says if we could target, we can get rid of the 30-second ad that you don't know who watched it, who bought your product. And we could basically target to you and say, Nick, we know you bought a sport jacket at Barney's. On your cell phone, we have your GPS. Well, I'm going to get to that.
Creepy.
And if you walk into Barney's today, we'll give you 20% off on another sport jacket. So, as you just said, the customer then says, hey, wait a second. How'd you know that about me? Who gave you permission to know all this? And so what you're in is a seesaw. The seesaw, as targeting goes up, privacy goes down. Right. As privacy goes up, targeting goes down. And that's a conundrum that the advertising world, all in the advertising world, want to have better targeting. They agree with Facebook. And will the public agree? Will
Maybe the ads need to be better so we want to watch them.
Well, then they say, well, we'll do six-second ads instead of 30 seconds. But imagine you have a 2-minute block, and you have 26-second ads. Who wants to be sandwiched?
I'm not. I'm just going to skip it.
So, Ken, Three Blind Mice. I mean, there were 3 networks not that long ago, and now the whole stage has changed. All the players on the stage have changed, and we're dropping like bowling pins. First print, then electronic. Something's going to happen. Where are we going? Where are we going to be in 5 years? What are people going to be watching?
I don't know what they'll be watching. Murdoch has made an interesting bet by selling his studio production facility. He couldn't sell the network, but he has the network, and basically it suggests that maybe he's going to get out of the scripted business, that he can't compete with the prices that Netflix and Amazon are paying. So he'll go to sports and news and maybe reality shows, unscripted shows. That puts pressure on the other networks to say, hey, can we really compete with Netflix and Amazon and Apple? And maybe we have to get into, out of that too. So that's one of the big questions out there. I don't dare to say I know the answer to that, nor does anyone else, by the way.
The book is Frenemies, The Epic Disruption of the Ad Business and Everything Else, out today. Ken Auletta, congratulations. Thanks for being on. And coming